Hello and welcome. I'm Thomas Porteous and you're watching the World Report on NewsX World. Let's take a look at some of the top stories of the hour. Iran warns President Donald Trump that any US attack will trigger strikes on Israel and American military bases in the region. The warning comes as Trump signals support for Iranian protesters and Israel remains on high alert. Meanwhile, Iranian authorities step up their crackdown on mass anti-government protests, with the Revolutionary Guards blaming terrorists for the unrest. Reports say more than 115 people are dead, hospitals are overwhelmed and internet access has been cut for over 60 hours. Now in Minneapolis, tens of thousands turn out to protest and police arrest at least 29 people over the fatal shooting of 37-year-old Renee Nicole Good by an ICE agent. One officer is injured after being hit by an object as demonstrators clash with police over US immigration enforcement. A Ukrainian drone attack kills a woman and damages homes and buildings in Russia's southern city of Voronezh. Kiev says these strikes target Russian military sites in response to Moscow's continued attacks on Ukraine. The US and partner forces carry out large-scale strikes on Islamic State targets in Syria after a deadly attack on American troops last month. The Pentagon says the operation aims to crush IS threats and protect US and allied forces in the region. Voters in Myanmar take part in the second phase of a military-run election that critics say is designed to formalize junta rule. The country remains gripped by civil war since the 2021 coup, which ousted the elected government. US Secretary of State Marco Rubio speaks by phone with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, confirming by a US official. Reports say the talks focus on Gaza, Syria and Iran's growing anti-government protests. In the entertainment world, the 83rd Golden Globe Awards begin tonight in Beverly Hills with nominees including Timothée Chalamet, Leonardo DiCaprio and Emma Stone. Comedian Nikki Glaser returns as host for a second year after making history with her solo debut in 2025. Now, of course, we turn to the Middle East first, and Iran has warned the United States that any attack would trigger retaliation against Israel and US military bases in the region. Parliament Speaker Mohammed Bakr Kalibaf has said. Kalibaf called these locations legitimate targets if America moves against Tehran. Meanwhile, Israel is now on high alert amid fears of US military intervention to support protests sweeping across Iran. The warning comes as tensions rise in the Middle East, with leaders monitoring the situation very closely. According to reports earlier, in a phone call with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and US Secretary of State Marco Rubio discussed the possibility of US intervention in Iran. Meanwhile, the Iranian parliament is meeting to discuss the ongoing protests, with lawmakers chanting "Death to America." Joining us now is Dr. Emmanuel Navon. He is an international relations lecturer at Tel Aviv University and senior fellow at the Jerusalem Institute for Strategy and Security. He joins us live from Tel Aviv. Dr. Navon, thank you very much for talking to us on this topic. Iran here with a significant statement following nearly 2 weeks of protests and a possible Donald Trump pitch for US intervention in Tehran and the rest of Iran. Tehran is openly calling US bases and Israel legitimate targets. From Israel's security perspective, how serious is this threat?
Well, first of all, this threat is typical of a dictatorship in need of outside enemies in order to justify its illegitimate rule. For many decades, the Iranian Islamic Republic has used Israel and the United States as outside enemies in order to try and build consensus in Iran. But this is no longer working. The Iranian people wants its freedom and does not consider neither Israel nor the United States as their enemies. On the contrary. And that's why the Iranian Islamic Republic is threatening Israel again. Now, Israel is taking those threats seriously. Our 3,500-year history has taught us to always take threats seriously. But as we remember, in June, there was a war already between Iran and Israel had the upper hand and took control of the airspace of Iran and was able to hit both its nuclear program and its missile program. So Israel is ready for another confrontation with Iran if Iran decides to attack Israel the same way that it's been attacking its own citizens.
Why does the United States want to intervene? Of course, we saw 29 Israelis killed in the conflict in June, and so the Iranian military has shown itself capable of penetrating the Iron Dome in a small way. Of course, much built-up infrastructure in Israel shows a clear more risk for the Israeli public over the United States military, which of course has multiple military bases in the region, which Iran has deemed targets as well. If Washington does intervene, does that ultimately strengthen Israel's security or put it more at risk?
Well, not only Israel's security, the security of Europe and of the free world in general. Don't forget that Iran is at the center of a web of aggressive regime that destabilized the region. Iran itself is a narco-state and a state that exports weapons through the Middle East and through Latin America and Africa, which is part of a network that included until recently Venezuela under the leadership of Maduro. So these countries together form a web of anti-Western and anti-free country network. And of course, with the demise of the Iranian web of aggression in the Middle East, thanks to Israel's successful military operation against the Iranian web of aggression, and thanks to the US military intervention last week against Maduro, this Iranian web of aggression is falling apart. But Iran itself continues to be the head of the octopus, and I think that's the reason why the United States is determined to put an end to this regime, which would finally dismantle this web of aggressive regime that endanger not only Israel, but also the United States and the free world in general.
Dr. Navon, is there appetite in Israel for round two in Iran if the United States with Iran, if United States does get involved and this does escalate into something more regional?
In Israel, there's only appetite with one thing, and that is life. Israelis want to live peacefully in this region, but this is not possible as long as the regime of the Islamic Republic, which is messianic, aggressive, and dimensional, it wants to eliminate Israel with its strategy of its proxies throughout the region and its nuclear program.
So Iran has said that what it's going to do, it's going to retaliate if the United States does attack. It's going to retaliate both against US military bases and against Israel. Does Israel now want the United States to intervene?
Israel doesn't want the United States to intervene. The United States is a sovereign country that can do whatever they want. And I don't think that the United States needs Israel advice or opinion on its national security policy. This is purely a decision from the US government to make and for the President of the United States to make that has nothing to do with Israel. But Israel, of course, being the main target of Iran's obsession, not of Iran, but of the Islamic Republic's obsession with Israel. So, of course, Israel does have an interest in the demise of this very, very dangerous regime. But those decisions, of course, whether to intervene or not against Iran is purely for the United States to make. Israel, for its part, is ready to defend itself if it is once again attacked by the regime of the Islamic Republic.
Dr. Navon, stay with us as we have further updates from the ongoing situation in Iran. And an internet blackout has now stretched beyond 60 hours nationwide in Iran as protests against the authorities continue to intensify. Internet monitor NetBlock says the shutdown is cutting off millions of Iranians from the outside world at a critical moment, warning it threatens public safety and basic rights. Despite the blackout, videos circulating online showing protesters gathering along highways in northeastern Iran, chanting slogans and setting fires. The demonstrations began late last month over soaring prices and inflation, but since they've turned openly political. Dr. Navon, I'm going to ask you bluntly, do you believe that this is something different here, despite the fact that we've, of course, had huge protests throughout the years, like 2019, 2022? Do you believe this is more significant than those that have occurred previously?
Definitely. We see an Iranian people that is raising against its oppressors in mass numbers, that is willing to take the risk of being killed, and that feels that it has the support of the free world, or at least part of the free world, and knows also that in the past year, the Iranian web of aggression has been crumbling in the Middle East, but also around the world. As I said before, the last event, of course, was last week with the demise of the Maduro regime. So the Iranian people today has more courage, has nothing to lose, and it's not only because of the economic crisis in Iran. It is also because, as I said, thanks to Israel and to the United States in the past 2 years, the Iranian web of aggression has been falling apart, and the United States is threatening to intervene on behalf of the Iranian people. And therefore, today it's completely different, because everybody sees that the Iranian regime of the Islamic Republic is on its last leg. It is really threatened this time. And this rebellion is, in that sense, very different from the previous one. And I think that we're reaching another Berlin Wall moment where a whole empire is going to be crumbling in front of our eyes.
Dr. Emmanuel Navon, as always, thank you very much for taking the time and speaking to us. We'll, of course, keep our viewers updated on that unfurling situation in Iran as soon as we get the information required. We move over to Norway now, and the organization that oversees the Nobel Peace Prize has rejected recent suggestions that Venezuelan opposition leader Marina Corina Machado could give or share her award with President Donald Trump. The Norwegian Nobel Institute shut down the idea after Machado suggested that she might transfer the prestigious award to Trump earlier this week. This comes as Marina Corina Machado is scheduled to visit Washington, D.C. this week to meet with President Donald Trump and other officials. The high-profile meeting is expected to focus on international issues and the political transition in Venezuela following Maduro's capture and the installation of an interim government under Delcy Rodriguez. Discussions may also cover plans for rebuilding Venezuela's infrastructure, particularly the oil industry, with potential significant investment from U.S. companies. Joining us now to discuss this is Glenn Grant. He's the ex-advisor to the Defense Minister of Ukraine and a geopolitical commentator. He joins us live from Riga in Latvia. Glenn, it's always a pleasure to talk to you. Thank you very much for joining us.
Yeah, thank you.
What do you think about this? The Nobel Peace Prize, a long, prestigious award, now seemingly being politicized in some way or the other. The movements of a possible appeasement towards Donald Trump by the winner of last year's award. What do you think of this? Has the Nobel Prize become a tool of leverage here?
That's a good question. I mean, I think this is less about the Peace Prize than it is about internal Venezuelan politics. I mean, I think that Machado, who was the opposition, or the strongest opposition at the time to Maduro, possibly thought that Trump would actually turn and give her the power, but he didn't. He went for Rodriguez, and Rodriguez is a much stronger and better politician overall, and has a much greater chance of running and leading the country bringing it back into some semblance of order than the Machado does. So this is a gamble by Machado to try and get Trump to change his mind and support her rather than his support for Rodriguez.
What's been your thoughts after we've seen the capture of Nicolas Maduro in Caracas just over a week ago now? Of course, the United States has put all of its energy when it comes to this into convincing American oil companies to invest in the project, which looks in a politically uncertain environment, and less about the politics of Venezuela. However, we are now seeing a meeting arranged between Machado and Trump. How have you analysed the way that the Trump administration has approached Venezuela domestically in terms of its government post the capture of Maduro?
Well, what is quite clear is that the Trump government did no forward thinking of any sensible shape or no research whatsoever, because the oil industry in Venezuela is not in good shape. It doesn't produce what you could call clean oil. It's a sort of heavy sludge type, and it needs a lot of money and work to turn that into a usable product. And the American oil companies have just been investing heavily in Canada. And why would they want to go to Venezuela, which is politically uncertain, has got absolutely dead infrastructure around the oil system, where they'd have to spend literally hundreds of billions to get anything out? So I think what you'll see is that the pro-Trump oil men will say yes, 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 and do nothing, and you'll actually get some strong pushback from the Democrat oil men, who are going to tell Trump straight to his face that this is a stupid idea and you should have done some proper research before you invaded and opened your mouth.
And of course, going back to this meeting that's going to happen, what would success look like at the end of the meeting with President Donald Trump? For Machado, for Trump, and for Venezuelans on the ground?
Well, that's a very good question. That's three questions. For Donald Trump, I think just that he actually sees the lady and supports her and says, thank you for your offer of Peace Prize, but unfortunately I'm not allowed to accept it or something, but it's great that you recognize that I am the rightful person to have had the Peace Prize, full stop. For Machado, she wants Trump to say he'll support her. And he may say that, but I don't think he'll do anything. Certainly Rubio is not unlikely to do anything. So I think that Machado might go away with a warm and fuzzy feeling that America is on her side in the long term. But underneath it, I don't see that there will be anything. For the Venezuelan public, I really don't see much coming towards them in terms of the oil. They may get more support in other areas from US. But I'm not sure that all the people in Venezuela, or many of them, actually want any support from US, because being invaded rarely has a good feeling to it.
Indeed. Glenn Grant, thank you very much for joining us. As always, it's a pleasure to speak to you. We now move on, and the US Central Command has announced the US and its partner forces have carried out large-scale strikes against Islamic State group targets in Syria. According to US Central Command, US President Donald Trump directed the strikes, which are part of Operation Hawkeye Strike, in retaliation to the IS's deadly attack on US forces in Syria on the 13th of December. It also emphasized that the strikes were conducted in an effort to combat terrorism and protect US and partner forces in the region. As per reports, fired more than 90 precision munitions at 35 targets in an operation that involved more than 20 aircraft. Aircraft including F-15ES, A-10S, AC-130JS, MQ-9S and Jordanian F-16S had taken part in the strikes. The Trump administration first announced the Operation Hawkeye strike in December after an IS gunman killed 2 US soldiers and a civilian US interpreter in an ambush in Palmyra, located in the center of Syria. Before the latest strikes, US forces killed or captured nearly 25 IS group members in 11 missions between the 20th and the 29th of December of last year as part of Operation Hawkeye Strike. We move on now, and China is being seen as rapidly closing the technology gap with the United States, driven by innovation and risk-taking among AI startups. According to the reports, the lack of advanced chip-making tools, including extreme ultraviolet lithography machines, is limiting China's ability to become a global AI leader. While startups like Minimax and Zhipu AI have gained investor confidence following recent Hong Kong Stock Exchange debuts, the industry experts say younger entrepreneurs' willingness to take risks and algorithm hardware co-design strategies are helping offset resource constraints. However, the US still maintains an edge in computing infrastructure, but China's AI sector is being bolstered by government support and fast-tracked listings. Stablecoin firm Rain has been valued at $1.95 billion following a $250 million funding round led by Iconic. The latest Series C investment brings the company's total funding to over $338 million and marks a more than 17-fold increase in valuation just 10 months in. However, the capital will be used to expand Rain's stablecoin payments platform, entering new markets and support enterprise launches, while Rain provides infrastructure for stablecoin-linked cards and wallets, enabling transactions wherever Visa is accepted. Investor interest in cryptocurrencies has grown amid easing regulations in key markets. Copilot is being tested for full integration inside Windows 11's File Explorer, allowing users to chat with AI without opening a separate app. The feature, spotted in preview builds, appears as a docked sidebar that can be detached into its own window. Previously, Copilot could only be accessed via right-click menus or the Home tab. However, Microsoft has not yet confirmed the rollout date, but is expected in the coming months. Meanwhile, Copilot's market share on the web remains low at just over 1%, lagging far behind competitors like ChatGPT and Gemini. Users will have the option to turn off the integration if desired. Rock legend Bob Weir and co-founder of the Grateful Dead has passed away at the age of 78. Weir was diagnosed with cancer last July, passed away due to lung-related issues, and he was surrounded by his family. Weir was one of the band's 2 main vocalists, singing hits like Truckin' and writing classics, including Sugar Magnolia, playing in the band, and Jack Straw. Known for his distinctive style and charisma, he helped shape the Grateful Dead's sound alongside Jerry Garcia. After Garcia's death in 1995, Weir continued with Rat Dog, leaving behind a lasting musical legacy. Well, that's all that we have time for. Keep watching NewsX World for more international news updates.
In the midst of death, life persists. In the midst of untruth, truth persists.